My name is Columbus, and at 68 years old, I never thought my only daughter would cut me from her wedding guest list, then demand my $2.6 million beach house days later. Amanda looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You owe me this, Dad." After 30 years of sacrifice, those 5 words shattered everything I thought I knew about our relationship. What happened next surprised even me. Before I continue my story, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and stick around to find out why I ended up at an orphanage instead of a real estate office. I grew up in a small town outside Boston, dreaming of designing buildings that would stand the test of time. Architecture school was a struggle financially, but I worked nights at a local diner to pay my way through. By 25, I had my degree and moved to New York with nothing but a portfolio and determination. Those early years were tough. I shared a tiny apartment with 2 other struggling architects, took any job I could get, and slowly built my reputation through dedication and late nights. It was during a project designing a small elementary school that I met Sophia. She was a kindergarten teacher with eyes that crinkled when she smiled, and a warmth that made everyone around her feel special. She would bring cookies to our planning meetings and ask thoughtful questions about how the design would affect her students. I found myself scheduling extra consultations just to see her again. 6 months later, we were married in a simple ceremony at her parents' garden. We tried to have children right away. Sophia had always wanted a big family, and I loved the idea of coaching Little League and helping with science projects. But after 3 years of trying, multiple specialists, and 2 heartbreaking miscarriages, we received the devastating news that Sophia would never be able to carry a child to term. Those were dark months. Sophia would cry herself to sleep, and I felt helpless, unable to fix the one thing that mattered most to her. It was actually during a particularly difficult night that we first discussed adoption. By morning, we had made a decision that would change our lives forever. The adoption process was lengthy and filled with paperwork, home studies, and anxious waiting. We connected with New Horizons Adoption Agency and attended every workshop they offered. 9 months later, we received a call about a 4-year-old girl whose mother had surrendered her rights after struggling with addiction. The agency warned us that she might have attachment issues and developmental delays due to her unstable early years. I still remember the first time we met Amanda at the agency. She was tiny for her age, with blonde curls and wary blue eyes that seemed to take in everything. She clutched a tattered stuffed rabbit and wouldn't speak to us directly, only whispering responses to the social worker. But when Sophia knelt down and gently asked if she could meet the rabbit, Amanda gave the smallest nod. That was enough for us. We knew she was our daughter. Bringing Amanda home was both joyful and challenging. The first few weeks, she barely spoke and had terrible nightmares. She would hide food in her room and flinch if we moved too quickly. Each small breakthrough felt monumental. The first time she called me Daddy was when I built her a dollhouse, spending every evening for 2 weeks crafting it in our garage. When she saw it, she looked up at me with those serious eyes and said the word so quietly, I almost missed it. At that point in my career, I was offered a position with a prestigious firm that would have doubled my salary but required extensive travel. I turned it down without hesitation, taking a more modest role at a local company that allowed me to be home every night. Some of my colleagues thought I was crazy to pass up such an opportunity, but I never regretted it. Amanda needed stability more than we needed money. We moved to a smaller house in a neighborhood known for its excellent schools. The mortgage stretched our budget to the breaking point, but Sophia and I agreed that education was worth the sacrifice. Our home was nothing fancy, but we filled it with love and laughter. I converted half the garage into an art studio for Amanda when she showed interest in painting, and Sophia started a garden where they would spend weekend mornings planting vegetables together. My own childhood had been marked by instability. My father drank too much, and my mother worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. There was never enough money, attention, or security. I was determined that Amanda would have everything I lacked, especially the knowledge that she was deeply loved and completely safe. When Amanda was 10, Sophia began experiencing mysterious health problems. Chronic fatigue, joint pain, and recurring infections led to countless doctor appointments and mounting medical bills. She was eventually diagnosed with lupus, an autoimmune disease that would require lifelong management. Sophia had to reduce her teaching hours, adding financial strain just as Amanda was entering her more expensive preteen years. I took on additional freelance work, drafting house plans on weekends to cover the costs of Sophia's treatments. Amanda would sometimes sit quietly in my home office, drawing while I worked. Other times, she would complain about having to cancel mall trips with friends because I needed to work. Even then, I noticed she had difficulty understanding why we couldn't afford the same luxuries as some of her classmates. Despite the challenges, we built traditions that strengthened our family bonds. Sunday night board games, summer camping trips in the mountains, and holiday cookie baking marathons created memories that I treasured. Amanda seemed happiest during our annual week at a rented beach cottage. She would collect shells and build elaborate sand castles, while Sophia and I watched from our blanket. It was during one of these trips, when Amanda was 16, that I first saw the listing for what would become our beach house. It was a dilapidated property with peeling paint and sagging porches, but the location was breathtaking. Right on the water with panoramic ocean views, it had been on the market for over a year due to the extensive renovations needed. The price was still far beyond what we could afford, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. After much discussion, Sophia and I made a ridiculous lowball offer, never expecting it to be accepted. When the real estate agent called to say the owner had agreed, we were equal parts thrilled and terrified. The beach house became my passion project. Every weekend I could spare, I drove the 3 hours to work on it, slowly bringing it back to life. I taught myself plumbing, electrical work, and cabinetry through books and early YouTube videos. Amanda occasionally joined me during school breaks, though she spent more time sunbathing than sanding. I dreamed of the day we could all enjoy the finished home together, hosting family gatherings and watching grandchildren build sandcastles as we had done with Amanda. Those years were a delicate balancing act, juggling Amanda's increasing needs as a teenager, Sophia's health management, full-time work, and the seemingly endless renovation project. I missed sleep, not family dinners. I wore worn clothes so Amanda could have the brand name jeans she insisted she needed. When she was accepted to her first choice college, an expensive private university, we remortgaged our primary home to cover what scholarships didn't. I considered it an investment in her future, never once expecting any return beyond her happiness and success. Amanda thrived in college, at least academically. She double majored in business and marketing, made the dean's list consistently, and secured impressive internships. But with each semester, our weekly phone calls grew shorter. When she came home for breaks, she spent most of her time texting friends or complaining about how boring our suburb was compared to her college town. I tried to maintain our connection by visiting campus for parents' weekends and sending care packages with homemade cookies from Sophia's recipe collection. I attended every performance when she joined an a cappella group, even driving 6 hours each way for a 20-minute set. Sometimes I felt Amanda was embarrassed by our presence, quickly introducing us to her friends before finding reasons we needed to leave early. During Amanda's junior year, Sophia's health took a dramatic turn for the worse. Her lupus had damaged her kidneys, requiring hospitalization and aggressive treatment. I called Amanda immediately, expecting her to want to come home. Instead, she explained she had midterms and a sorority event she couldn't miss. She did video call Sophia in the hospital, but seemed distracted and ended the conversation after less than 10 minutes. Sophia never complained about Amanda's absence, always making excuses for her. She's building her own life, Columbus. That's what we raised her to do. But I saw the hurt in her eyes when weeks passed without a call from our daughter. By Amanda's senior year, Sophia was undergoing dialysis 3 times weekly. I became her primary caregiver, while still working full-time and continuing the beach house renovations whenever possible. The projects provided a necessary escape, hours of physical labor, where I could process my worry and fear through productive action. When Sophia received her cancer diagnosis, it felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. Multiple myeloma, an aggressive blood cancer likely triggered by her compromised immune system. Amanda flew home for the weekend after we told her, brought a generic grocery store bouquet, and spent most of her visit on her laptop working on final projects. She left early to attend a networking event, promising to return soon. She didn't. The following 8 months were a blur of oncology appointments, emergency room visits, and watching my beloved wife grow weaker despite every intervention modern medicine could offer. I kept Amanda updated through texts and emails, which she responded to sporadically with brief messages of sympathy. Sophia defended her until the end. She's just starting her career, Columbus. She can't drop everything. She loves us in her own way. Sophia passed peacefully on a Tuesday morning in April, with me holding her hand and Amanda on a business trip she said she couldn't reschedule. The funeral was small, just as Sophia would have wanted. Amanda arrived an hour before the service and left immediately after for her flight back to Chicago, where she'd secured her first job with a marketing firm. The months following Sophia's death were the loneliest of my life. Our house, once filled with Sophia's warmth and energy, felt cavernous and empty. I threw myself into completing the beach house renovations, now with a desperate intensity. The physical exhaustion helped me sleep at night, and watching the house transform gave me purpose when everything else seemed pointless. Amanda called occasionally, usually on Sunday evenings, for brief conversations about her work achievements and social calendar. She never asked how I was managing or if I needed anything. When I brought up visiting her in Chicago or having her come home, she always had ready excuses about deadlines and commitments. 2 years after Sophia's passing, I decided to take early retirement. With my pension, savings, and a small life insurance policy Sophia had insisted on maintaining despite our tight budget, I had enough to live modestly. I sold our family home, unable to bear its emptiness any longer, and moved permanently to the now completed beach house. I invited Amanda to the housewarming, hoping to reconnect in the place that had been Sophia's dream. She declined, citing a work conference, but asked for photos. I sent dozens, proudly showing off the kitchen cabinets I had built by hand and the master bathroom with the clawfoot tub Sophia had always wanted. Amanda replied with a single text. "Looks nice. Bet you could sell it for a fortune now." When Amanda did finally visit the beach house nearly a year later, it was for a 3-day weekend that coincided with a college friend's wedding nearby. She brought along her new boyfriend, Thomas, a financial analyst from a wealthy Connecticut family. I was thrilled to meet him and went all out preparing fresh seafood dinners and stocking the refrigerator with their favorite drinks. Thomas was polished and articulate, with expensive casual clothes and the confident demeanor of someone who has never worried about money. He complimented the house, but in ways that felt backhanded. "You did all this work yourself? That's surprisingly good craftsmanship for an amateur." Or, "This location is prime real estate. Shame about the outdated exterior color scheme, though." I tried to connect with him through shared interests, discovering he enjoyed fishing. I offered to take him out on my small boat, a retirement gift to myself, after years of dreaming about it. He declined, mentioning he usually chartered fully equipped vessels when his family vacationed in the Caribbean. Throughout the weekend, I noticed how Amanda seemed to mirror Thomas's attitudes and preferences. She made comments about the quaint furnishings in the house I had so carefully selected. When I suggested visiting the local farmers market, a tradition Sophia and I had loved, Amanda rolled her eyes and said they preferred actual restaurants for brunch. More concerning was how she spoke about her childhood, revising history in ways that painted our modest lifestyle as more deprived than it had been. "Dad never understood the importance of social connections," she told Thomas over dinner. "I had to wear second-hand clothes while classmates had designer labels." I nearly choked on my water, remembering the budget gymnastics Sophia and I had performed to afford the exact brands Amanda had insisted were essential. After they left, I felt a hollowness that had nothing to do with being alone again. Amanda had physically been present, but the daughter I raised seemed to have been replaced by someone I barely recognized. I tried to dismiss it as a phase, or her attempt to impress her boyfriend, but deep down, I feared our relationship had fundamentally changed. Over the next 2 years, Amanda's visits became increasingly rare and brief. She advanced quickly in her career, moving to a prestigious firm in New York and adopting an affluent lifestyle that seemed to revolve around exclusive restaurants and luxury brands. Our phone conversations centered on her accomplishments or material acquisitions. When I shared news about my retirement volunteer work with a coastal conservation group or the community theater where I had started building sets, she would listen politely before steering the conversation back to her world. Holiday gatherings became particularly painful. The Christmas after Amanda moved to New York, I invited her to the beach house, planning to recreate some of our old family traditions. She arrived late on Christmas Eve and announced she could only stay until noon on Christmas Day due to a ski trip with Thomas and his family. She brought store-wrapped gifts that felt impersonal and seemed uncomfortable with the photo album I had created featuring memories of Sophia. The following year, she sent a gift basket from an expensive gourmet shop with a card saying she would be spending the holidays in Aspen with Thomas. Meanwhile, I had finally completed the last of the beach house renovations, a wraparound deck where I could watch the sunrise with my morning coffee. 15 years after purchasing the dilapidated property, it had transformed into the home of my dreams. Neighbors and friends commented on the remarkable transformation, but the person whose opinion mattered most had barely noticed. The beach house became my sanctuary. I joined a local retirees breakfast club, volunteered teaching architecture classes at the community college, and found a gentle rhythm to my days that brought unexpected contentment. I missed Sophia terribly, especially during quiet evening hours, but I had built a life that honored her memory while looking forward rather than back. I first learned of Amanda's engagement through her Instagram post. A professionally photographed image showed her manicured hand sporting a diamond ring that looked large enough to require its own zip code. The caption read, "I said yes to forever with my best friend." I waited for her call, checking my phone with embarrassing frequency. When 2 days passed without word, I finally called her myself, reaching her voicemail twice before she returned my call between meetings. "Amanda, congratulations on your engagement. I saw the post and wanted to hear all about it." "Thanks, Dad." Her voice held the distracted tone I had become accustomed to. "Yeah," Thomas proposed at 11 Madison Park. "It was really nice." I asked about their plans, when I might meet his family, and how I could help with the wedding. Her answers were vague and non-committal. "We are thinking maybe next spring. Nothing big, probably just immediate family and close friends. We are still figuring things out." "Well, I would love to help however I can. Maybe I could contribute to the venue or the catering, or if you need someone to coordinate with vendors or help with logistics, I have plenty of time." "That's nice, Dad. But Thomas's mother has connections with all the best wedding planners, and his parents already offered to handle the financial side of things. I need to run to a meeting now, but I will keep you updated." Weeks passed with minimal information. When I asked specific questions about the wedding, Amanda deflected with comments about being super busy and still working out details. I began to worry she was avoiding the conversation for a reason, but dismissed my concern as paranoia. 2 months before the spring date Amanda had initially mentioned, I still had not received any formal invitation. I called to ask directly about the wedding timeline, thinking perhaps they had postponed. "Oh, we decided to move it up a bit," Amanda said casually. "With Thomas's promotion and travel schedule, winter actually works better for us." "Winter? But that is only a few weeks away. Have you sent invitations yet?" "We are keeping it really small, Dad. Just a simple ceremony." "Of course. I understand small and intimate. I would still like to book my travel arrangements. Could you let me know the exact date and location?" Her lengthy pause was the first clear indication something was wrong. "Actually, Dad, we are limiting it to just a few people who are, central to our daily lives. With venue restrictions and Thomas's family size, we had to make some tough decisions." The implication hung in the silence between us. I was not among those central to my only daughter's life, not important enough to witness her marriage. I see, I finally managed, my voice unnaturally calm, while my heart hammered painfully. Well, I certainly understand limitations. Perhaps we could celebrate together afterward. Definitely, she replied, relief evident in her voice. We will plan something when things settle down. Listen, I have to jump on a conference call. Talk soon. I spent that evening staring at the ocean from my deck, replaying our conversation and 29 years of fatherhood, wondering where I had failed so completely. Had I been too strict? Not strict enough? Had my focus on providing financially come at the cost of emotional connection? I tortured myself with questions that had no clear answers. For the next several weeks, I maintained minimal contact with Amanda, unable to bridge the chasm her wedding exclusion had created. I alternated between hurt, anger, and crushing sadness. Some days I drafted lengthy emails explaining my feelings, only to delete them without sending. What purpose would it serve to burden her with my pain? If she wanted me at her wedding, I would be there. The absence of invitation spoke volumes. Then came the accidental discovery that shattered any remaining illusions. While getting a haircut in town, my barber mentioned his nephew was photographing a huge society wedding in the city the following weekend. When he mentioned the groom's name was Thomas Grayson, my blood ran cold. That must be quite an event, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. Small, intimate affair, is it? The barber laughed. Not hardly. My nephew said they have hired a small army of florists and rented out the entire botanical garden. Guest list of over 200, he heard. That night, I broke my own rule about respecting Amanda's privacy and looked up Thomas's family on social media. His mother's profile was public, filled with excited posts about wedding preparations, multiple pre-wedding celebrations, and family gatherings. One photo showed Thomas with his parents, grandparents, and what appeared to be numerous aunts, uncles, and cousins at a rehearsal dinner. The caption read, "So blessed to have our entire family together to celebrate Thomas and Amanda's union," their entire family, but not her father. On the actual wedding day, I turned off my phone and took my boat out, staying on the water until sunset. I could not bear to think about the ceremony happening hundreds of miles away. My daughter walking down the aisle with no one to give her away. Had she asked Thomas's father to do it? Or simply eliminated that tradition? When I finally checked social media the next day, the photos confirmed what the barber had said. The wedding was a lavish affair with ice sculptures, a 10-piece orchestra, and what looked like hundreds of guests in formal attire. Amanda looked stunning in a designer gown, beaming beside her new husband. The professional photos showed Thomas surrounded by generations of relatives, all present to support him on his important day. I closed my laptop and pulled out the old photo albums from the shelf. Pictures of 4-year-old Amanda on her first day of school, clutching her lunchbox with determination. Amanda at 12, proudly displaying the science fair ribbon we had stayed up all night helping her earn. Amanda at her high school graduation, flanked by Sophia and me, all of us glowing with pride and hope for her future. I was reaching for another album when my phone rang. The name on the screen surprised me. Linda Thompson, Sophia's sister. We had remained in loose contact over the years, exchanging holiday cards and occasional calls on significant anniversaries. "Columbus," she said without preamble. "I feel you should know. I attended Amanda's wedding yesterday." The revelation felt like a physical blow. "You were there?" "Amanda invited me and David a month ago. I assumed you would be there, and I was looking forward to seeing you. When we arrived, and you were not at the family table, I asked Amanda about you," she said. Linda paused, her discomfort evident even through the phone. She told guests, who asked that her parents were no longer living. My grip on the phone tightened until my hand ached. She said I was dead? Not in those exact words. She referred to losing both her parents, allowing people to draw their own conclusions. Columbus. I confronted her privately about it. She said it was simpler than explaining your absence. I told her I found it appalling and left early. I debated whether to tell you, but I would want to know if it were my child. After thanking Linda for her honesty, I sat in my darkened living room for hours, trying to comprehend how the little girl I had raised could erase me so completely from her life. What narrative had she created that made this acceptable in her mind? What had I done to deserve such treatment? That night, for the first time, I considered changing my will. The beach house and my modest savings were currently designated entirely to Amanda. I had always seen them as her birthright, a final gift from the parents who had loved her unconditionally. Now, I questioned everything about our relationship. Had she ever valued it beyond what material security I could provide? Despite this painful thought, I decided to make one final attempt at reconciliation. Perhaps once the wedding excitement settled, we could have an honest conversation about our relationship and find a way forward. I would not mention what Linda had told me. I would simply offer an opportunity to rebuild what we had lost. I sent a text the next day. "Congratulations to you and Thomas. I hope your day was everything you dreamed. When you return from your honeymoon, I would love to take you both to dinner to celebrate." Her response came 3 days later. "Thanks. We'll check schedule when we get back." I received no further communication for 2 weeks. My phone rang on a Tuesday morning while I was fixing a leaky faucet in the guest bathroom. Seeing Amanda's name on the screen sent a wave of both hope and anxiety through me. "Amanda, how are you? How was the honeymoon?" It was amazing. Her voice sounded warmer than it had in months. Maldives was absolute paradise. The overwater bungalow was incredible. "That sounds wonderful. I would love to hear all about it. Actually, I was thinking we could catch up in person. Are you free for lunch tomorrow? There is a new bistro in Sag Harbor I have been wanting to try." My spirits lifted immediately. Perhaps she was extending an olive branch. I would love that. "What time should I meet you? 1 o'clock? I will text you the address." "Perfect. Looking forward to it." After we hung up, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. Maybe the wedding exclusion had been primarily Thomas's family's doing, or a misguided attempt to spare me some awkwardness. Perhaps now that the pressure of the wedding was behind us, Amanda and I could rebuild our relationship. I spent the next morning selecting a belated wedding gift, finally choosing a pair of antique silver candlesticks that had belonged to Sophia's grandmother. I had them professionally polished and wrapped, adding a card expressing my unconditional love and hopes for their happiness. The restaurant was upscale and busy when I arrived. I checked in with the host and was led to a corner table where Amanda was already seated. What I had not expected was that Thomas would be with her. He sat beside her, both of them dressed in what appeared to be coordinated casual luxury attire. "Dad," Amanda stood to offer a brief hug. "You remember Thomas?" "Of course." I shook his hand. "Congratulations to you both. I hope married life is treating you well so far." "It is." Thomas smiled, though it did not reach his eyes. "Newlywed life agrees with us." The first 20 minutes of lunch were surprisingly pleasant. Amanda showed me honeymoon photos on her phone, describing the crystal clear waters and private dinners on the beach. I shared updates about my volunteer work and recent community theater production. For a brief, wonderful moment, it felt almost normal. As our entrees arrived, however, the conversation shifted abruptly. "So," Amanda set down her water glass deliberately, "Thomas and I have been house hunting." "Oh? I thought you loved your apartment in the city." "We do, but we are thinking longer term now, starting to plan for a family eventually, and looking at weekend properties." "That makes sense." I nodded. "Any particular areas you are considering?" Thomas answered. "We have been focusing on the Hamptons, actually. The market is competitive, but with my family connections, we have seen some promising properties. The Hamptons is wonderful. I have never regretted purchasing this place, even when it was falling apart." I smiled, not yet sensing the direction of their conversation. Amanda took a small sip of her wine before speaking again. "Actually, Dad, that is partly why we wanted to meet with you today." "Oh?" "We have been thinking," she continued, her tone shifting to something I couldn't quite identify. Your beach house is so large for just one person. And now that you are getting older, maintaining it must be becoming difficult. An uneasy feeling began to grow in my stomach. I managed just fine. Keeping active with projects helps keep me young. Thomas leaned forward, switching to what I recognized as his professional voice. Columbus, what Amanda is trying to say is that we believe it might make sense for you to consider transferring ownership of the property to Amanda now, rather than waiting for the eventual inheritance process. The bluntness of his statement left me momentarily speechless. Amanda jumped in. It would be a win-win situation, Dad. You could still use it whenever you want, of course. We would set aside the master suite for your visits, but the tax advantages of gifting the property now, rather than as part of an estate, are significant. Tax advantages, I repeated slowly, struggling to process what was happening. Exactly, Thomas nodded, clearly warming to his topic. I have consulted with our financial advisor. Given your age and the current tax codes, a property transfer now would save hundreds of thousands in potential estate taxes later. I see. And where exactly would I live if I transferred my home to you? Amanda waved her hand dismissively. You could get a nice condo nearby, something low maintenance, or even continue living at the beach house until you need something more manageable. Until I need assisted living, you mean? Dad, please do not be difficult about this. Amanda's voice took on an edge I recognized from her teenage years when she did not get her way immediately. You owe me this, Dad. After everything. The words hit me like a physical blow. I owe you? Yes. Thomas and I need a proper weekend home where we can entertain colleagues and his family. You are just one person in that huge house. Thomas nodded. It really is the logical solution. The property needs updating anyway. The decor is rather outdated, and we would want to modernize the kitchen and bathrooms. My hands began to tremble slightly beneath the table. The house I had poured 15 years of labor into, the home where I had processed my grief over Sophia, the sanctuary that represented every sacrifice we had made for Amanda's benefit, was being discussed as though it were merely an inconvenient asset to be redistributed. I understand your position, I said carefully, but I am not ready to give up my home. Amanda's expression hardened. Dad, be reasonable. It is not like you have other children to leave it to anyway. I am your only heir, so the house will be mine eventually. This just accelerates the timeline and offers significant financial benefits. I need to use the restroom. Excuse me. I stood up, afraid my emotions would betray me if I remained at the table. In the privacy of the bathroom stall, I took deep breaths and splashed cold water on my face. The entitlement in Amanda's voice echoed in my mind. You owe me this. After decades of putting her needs first, sacrificing career opportunities, working weekends to afford her education, and pouring my heart into creating a stable, loving home, she viewed my remaining assets as something I owed her rather than gifts to be given freely. I returned to the table with a composed expression that masked my inner turmoil. Thomas was showing Amanda something on his phone, both of them laughing. They looked up as I sat down. Everything okay, Dad? You were gone a while. Fine. Just needed a moment. So, Amanda continued, as if there had been no interruption. How soon do you think we could start the property transfer process? We would like to have everything settled before summer so we can host a proper holiday weekend for Thomas's family in July. I looked at my daughter, trying to see the child I had raised in the stranger before me. I need time to think about this, Amanda. It is a significant decision. Her expression flickered between frustration and calculation. Of course, take a few days, but the summer rental market is heating up, and Thomas's family usually confirms their holiday plans months in advance. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak further. The remainder of lunch passed in strained conversation about neutral topics. When the bill came, Thomas grabbed it swiftly. Let me get this. After all, we are asking a favor of you. A favor. Surrendering my home was being framed as a favor I should be grateful they were willing to accommodate. We parted with tense smiles and promises to talk soon. The gift I had brought remained in my car, suddenly inappropriate for the interaction that had just occurred. As I drove home along the familiar coastal road, I realized I was at a crossroads that would define whatever years I had left. Sleep eluded me that night. I lay awake replaying the lunch conversation, each replay increasing my sense of betrayal. By dawn, I had moved from shock to a deep, aching sadness that settled in my chest like a physical weight. The text from Amanda arrived before 8. Dad, have you had a chance to think about what we discussed? Our attorney says we should start paperwork soon if we want to complete the transfer before summer. Not even 24 hours had passed. No recognition of the magnitude of what she was asking. No acknowledgement of my feelings or concerns. Instead of responding immediately, I spent the morning pulling out old photo albums and memorabilia boxes from the attic. I sat at my kitchen table, cup of coffee growing cold, as I turned pages of Amanda's life, her first lost tooth, the science project we stayed up all night to finish, her high school graduation, with Sophia beaming proudly, despite being in the middle of chemotherapy. In one box, I found the original adoption paperwork, the official documents declaring Amanda legally our daughter, the social worker's reports noting our commitment to providing a stable, loving home, Sophia's journal, where she had written about her dreams for our daughter's future. I hope she grows up to be kind, Sophia had written. That matters more than success or wealth. I want her to recognize the value of people over things. Somewhere along the way, we had failed to instill that priority. Or perhaps Amanda had simply chosen a different path, influenced by peers and partners who measured worth in material terms. Either way, the disconnect between our values and her current behavior could not be bridged by simply surrendering my home. The memory of the orphanage where we had first met Amanda surfaced unexpectedly. New Horizons had been a clean but understaffed facility, doing their best with limited resources. The children there had so little, yet I remembered how they shared toys and looked out for each other. Amanda had been withdrawn then, protecting herself from further abandonment after her birth mother's departure. We had promised her security and unconditional love, believing those were the greatest gifts we could offer. My phone rang again. Amanda's name flashed on the screen. Hello? Dad, did you get my text? Thomas is meeting with the estate attorney tomorrow and wanted to bring up our situation. Amanda, I am still thinking. This is my home we are talking about. Her voice took on a harder edge. Dad, I am not trying to be difficult, but you need to be practical. You are 68 years old. The house is too big for you, and maintenance will only become more challenging. Thomas and I are ready to start a family in the next few years. The house should stay in the family. I understand your perspective, Amanda, but this is not just about practicality. This is about respect and boundaries. What boundaries? I am your daughter, your only child. Who else would get the house eventually? That is not the point. The beach house is not just property to me. It represents years of work, memories with your mother, and the life I have built in retirement. I am not ready to give that up. Her tone shifted to something that chilled me. Dad, I do not want to have to say this, but if you do not work with us on this, Thomas thinks we should consider challenging any will you might have if it does not properly provide for your only daughter. His cousin is a trust and estate lawyer who says elderly parents can sometimes make decisions that would not hold up to legal scrutiny. The threat was thinly veiled but unmistakable. They would question my mental competence if I did not comply with their demands. Are you threatening me, Amanda? I am trying to protect our family interests, she replied coolly. I would hate for legal complications to damage our relationship further. I see. My voice sounded distant to my own ears. I need to go now. I will be in touch. I ended the call and sat in stunned silence. The daughter I had raised was threatening legal action if I did not surrender my home on her timeline. The final illusion that our relationship was based on love rather than transaction shattered completely. That afternoon, I called my oldest friend, Jack, who had retired to Florida years earlier. We had stayed in touch through monthly phone calls and occasional fishing trips. Jack had known Amanda since she was a child and had watched our relationship change over the years. She actually said you owe her the house? Jack's disbelief echoed through the phone. After everything you and Sophia did for her? She did. And when I hesitated, she implied they might contest my will on grounds of mental incompetence. Jack's sigh was heavy with understanding. Columbus, I have watched you bend over backward for that girl her entire life. You gave up career opportunities, worked yourself to exhaustion, and put her needs above your own consistently, and Sophia was the same way. At what point do you say enough? I do not know. She is still my daughter. Is she? Or is she just someone who views you as a means to acquire what she wants? Think about it, Columbus. When was the last time Amanda called just to check on you? Offered to help with anything? Shown any interest in your life or well-being? His questions hit with uncomfortable precision. I could not remember the last time Amanda had asked how I was doing and actually waited for a real answer. Maybe I failed her somehow, I offered weakly. Maybe I did not teach her proper values. That is nonsense, and you know it. You and Sophia were the most devoted parents I have ever seen. You cannot control the choices an adult makes. At some point, Amanda decided that material things were more important than relationships. That is on her, not you. After we hung up, I drove to the beach house, suddenly desperate to connect with the property that had become so much more than a building to me. I walked each room slowly, running my hands along the walls I had plastered, the banisters I had sanded, the kitchen cabinets I had built from scratch. Every corner held memories of the challenges overcome to transform this space. On the deck overlooking the ocean, I sat in the Adirondack chair I had crafted from reclaimed wood after Sophia died. We had planned to sit in matching chairs, growing old together while watching sunsets. Now I sat alone, facing both the natural beauty before me and the painful reality of my relationship with my daughter. For the first time, I allowed myself to consider that maintaining the status quo with Amanda might be more damaging than creating boundaries, even if those boundaries resulted in further distance between us. Perhaps I had enabled her sense of entitlement by always giving in, always prioritizing her wishes above my own needs. As the sun set over the water, I reached a moment of clarity that felt both painful and liberating. I could not change Amanda or force her to value our relationship. I could only change my own behavior and make choices that honored the life and values Sophia and I had tried to live. Whatever I decided about the beach house, it would be based on what brought genuine meaning to my remaining years, not on fear of losing a relationship that might exist only in my memory rather than in present reality. The morning after my epiphany on the deck, I began researching local organizations that supported children in need. If Amanda saw my home primarily as a financial asset, perhaps I could transform it into something with deeper purpose, something that would honor Sophia's values and the original spirit in which we had adopted Amanda. One name kept appearing in my searches: Hope Harbor Children's Home, a residential facility for children awaiting adoption or foster placement. Located just 30 miles up the coast, they had been operating for over 40 years, with a solid reputation but chronic underfunding. I called and scheduled a tour for the following day, explaining briefly that I was considering ways to support their work. The administrator, Sarah Williams, sounded surprised but delighted by my interest. Hope Harbor was housed in a large Victorian building that had clearly seen better days. The paint was peeling, the roof showed signs of patching, and the playground equipment looked at least 2 decades old. But the moment I stepped inside, I was struck by the warmth of the environment. Children's artwork covered the walls, comfortable if worn furniture filled the common spaces, and the staff greeted children by name with genuine affection. Sarah, a woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and practical demeanor, gave me a thorough tour, candidly discussing both their successes and challenges. They currently house 28 children ranging from infants to teenagers, with a waiting list due to space limitations. Our biggest challenge is the physical facility, Sarah explained, as we walked through a bedroom, shared by 4 young boys. This building was donated in the 1980s, and we simply have not had the capital budget for major renovations. We make do with volunteer help and donations, but the infrastructure needs exceed what bake sales can provide. As we continued the tour, I found myself particularly drawn to a small boy sitting alone in the library corner, intensely focused on a book about architecture. While other children played together in groups, he remained separate, his body language suggesting he expected to be overlooked. "That is Andy," Sarah said quietly. "He came to us 3 months ago after his 4th failed foster placement. 7 years old, and already convinced adults will eventually send him away. He rarely speaks to staff or other children." Something about Andy's solitude and the architecture book in his hands resonated deeply. I asked if I could speak with him briefly. Sarah nodded, but warned me not to expect much response. I approached slowly and sat in a chair near him, but not crowding his space. "That looks like an interesting book. I used to be an architect." Andy glanced up briefly, assessing me with wary eyes, before returning to his page. But I noticed his posture had shifted slightly toward me. "Buildings can tell stories if you know how to listen," I continued casually. "See that arch design there? Romans figured out that shape thousands of years ago. It is still one of the strongest ways to span an opening." Another quick glance, slightly longer this time. I did not push for more, simply sat in companionable silence for a few minutes before thanking him for sharing the library space and rejoining Sarah. As we completed the tour, Sarah showed me their most urgent needs: a roof replacement, updated heating system, and renovation of the overcrowded bedrooms to create more appropriate spaces for the children. "We do our best with what we have," she said. "But these kids have already faced so much instability and loss. They deserve surroundings that make them feel valued and secure." I left Hope Harbor with a clarity of purpose I had not felt in years. The next day, I called my attorney, Michael Greenberg, who had handled my legal matters since Sophia's passing. "I need to make some significant changes to my estate plan," I explained, "and I want to explore options for establishing a charitable foundation." Michael listened carefully as I outlined my emerging plan. He asked thoughtful questions about my goals and concerns, particularly regarding Amanda. "Columbus, I have to ask, are you making these changes because you are angry with your daughter? Because decisions made in emotional heat often lead to regret later." "It is not about anger, Michael. It is about alignment with my values and creating meaning from what I have built. I have spent decades putting Amanda's needs first, often at my own expense. I am not cutting her out entirely, but I am recalibrating the balance." He nodded. "I understand. Let me do some research on the most effective structure for what you are envisioning. In the meantime, I suggest you consult with Patricia at the financial advisory firm. The foundation concept will have significant tax implications you will want to optimize." Over the next week, I had meetings with both Michael and Patricia, exploring options for restructuring my assets. We developed a comprehensive plan that would establish the Second Chance Foundation, named in honor of the second chance Sophia and I had received through Amanda's adoption, and the second chances I hope to provide to children at Hope Harbor. The beach house would become the cornerstone property of the foundation, to be used for summer camps and retreats for children awaiting adoption. A portion of my savings would provide an endowment for maintenance and programming. I would retain lifetime use of a small apartment within the house. Amanda would still receive a modest inheritance and limited access to use the beach house for personal vacations, but the property would ultimately belong to the foundation rather than passing to her directly. As Michael finalized the legal documents, I received another call from Amanda. "Dad, it has been over a week since we discussed the house. Thomas's family is pressing us about summer plans, and we need to know if they can come to the beach house. Amanda, I have made some decisions about the beach house that I need to share with you." "Great. How soon can we meet with the property attorney?" "Thomas has already started looking at contractors for the renovation." Her presumption that my decision would align with her demands was breathtaking. "That will not be necessary," I said calmly. "I am not transferring the beach house to you." Silence stretched for several seconds before she responded, her voice tight with controlled anger. "What exactly does that mean?" "It means I have other plans for the property. Plans that align with my values and what your mother would have wanted. What are you talking about? Mom would have wanted the house to stay in the family. Your mother wanted our resources to benefit children in need. That is what we intended when we adopted you, and that is what I intend to continue with the beach house. You cannot be serious. Her voice rose. You are giving away my inheritance to strangers? I am establishing a foundation that will use the property to benefit children waiting for adoption, just as you once were. You will still receive a financial inheritance and have limited use of the property for personal visits. Limited use? Of what should be my house? Her control snapped. This is absolutely unacceptable. You have no right to do this. I have every right, Amanda. The house is mine, built with my labor, paid for with my savings. What I choose to do with it is my decision. Thomas needs to hear this, she said. I heard muffled voices before Thomas came on the line. Columbus, Amanda is quite upset. Perhaps we should discuss this more rationally. Whatever charitable inclinations you have could be accommodated through other means that do not involve diverting significant assets from your daughter. My decision is not a negotiation, Thomas. His tone chilled. I feel obligated to point out that dramatic changes to estate plans late in life often raise questions about undue influence or diminished capacity. As Amanda's husband, I would be remiss in not protecting her interests against potentially improper actions. There it was, the threat made explicit. I have already discussed this possibility with my attorney, Thomas. He has taken appropriate steps to document my mental competence and the deliberate, rational process behind these decisions. Any challenge would be both unsuccessful and publicly embarrassing for you. You would choose strangers over your own daughter? Amanda had taken the phone back, her voice thick with tears that sounded more like rage than sorrow. I am choosing to honor the values your mother and I tried to instill, the values that led us to welcome a little girl into our home and hearts 30 years ago. I will always be your father, Amanda, and I will always love you, but I will no longer enable behavior that contradicts everything we taught you. You will regret this, she said coldly. Do not expect to be part of our lives or meet any grandchildren we might have. The line went dead. Despite expecting this reaction, the finality of her threat created a hollow ache in my chest. Yet, underneath the pain was a steadiness I had not felt in years, a certainty that I was finally acting in alignment with my deepest values rather than fear of losing Amanda's conditional affection. The following week, I signed the documents establishing the Second Chance Foundation. Michael had structured it carefully to withstand any potential legal challenges. The beach house would remain my primary residence during my lifetime, while beginning to host limited programs for children from Hope Harbor. Upon my death, it would transfer fully to the foundation, with specific provisions for its ongoing use. I also reached out to Sarah at Hope Harbor to share my plans and offer my services as a volunteer. With my architectural background, I could help design the renovations their facility desperately needed. We arranged for a small group of children, including Andy, to visit the beach house the following weekend for a day of ocean exploration and architectural projects. That first visit was both challenging and rewarding. Most of the children were initially overwhelmed by the ocean and luxurious surroundings. Andy remained withdrawn, speaking only when directly addressed and keeping physical distance from everyone. But by afternoon, as we built elaborate sand castles and I showed them how to create sturdy structures, small moments of genuine joy emerged. Andy particularly connected with the architectural aspects of our beach activities. When I showed him how flying buttresses could support taller sand towers, his eyes lit up with understanding. It is like in my book, he said softly, the first voluntary comment he had offered all day. Exactly like your book, I agreed. Engineers figured out that principle hundreds of years ago, and it still works today, even in sand. As the children loaded back onto the Hope Harbor van that evening, Andy paused beside me. Can I come back and build more? He asked, his voice barely audible. Any time, I promised. We have lots more building to do. That night, alone in the beach house that would eventually become a sanctuary for children like Andy, rather than a status symbol for Amanda and Thomas, I felt a bittersweet peace. I had lost something precious in my relationship with my daughter, perhaps irretrievably, but I had found purpose that honored Sophia's memory and created meaning from the pain. 6 months passed in a new rhythm of purpose and unexpected joy. 3 days each week, I volunteered at Hope Harbor, leading architectural workshops for interested children and helping design their facility renovation. The other days, I worked with the foundation board we had assembled to develop summer programming that would begin the following year. The beach house hosted weekend visits from small groups of Hope Harbor children twice monthly. We built increasingly elaborate sand castles, explored tide pools, and created architectural models in the sunroom I had converted to a workshop space. Each visit brought new moments of connection and healing for the children and for me. Andy became a regular presence, his initial withdrawal gradually giving way to cautious trust. He showed remarkable aptitude for structural concepts and spent hours working alongside me on designs. When he spoke, which became increasingly frequent, his observations were thoughtful and precise. I recognized in his careful self-protection the same wariness Amanda had shown when we first brought her home. The difference was that I now understood the delicate balance between nurturing and enabling, between support and rescue. I could offer Andy tools, encouragement, and consistent presence without trying to fix everything for him or protect him from every disappointment. In helping him develop resilience rather than dependence, I finally recognized where my parenting of Amanda had gone astray. Communication from Amanda came only through increasingly frustrated letters from her attorney. Thomas had indeed pursued a legal challenge to the foundation, claiming I had been unduly influenced by the Hope Harbor staff. The effort failed quickly once Michael presented the extensive documentation of my decision-making process and evaluations from 2 independent psychiatrists, confirming my mental competence. The final legal letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, acknowledging that all avenues of challenge had been exhausted. Amanda and Thomas would need to accept the terms of the trust as established, which still provided her with a significant financial inheritance and limited use rights to the beach house under foundation oversight. That same afternoon, Sophia's sister Linda called unexpectedly. We had reconnected at Christmas, rebuilding our relationship after the wedding debacle. She had even visited the beach house and met some of the Hope Harbor children, confirming that Sophia would have wholeheartedly approved of the foundation. Columbus. Linda's voice held an unusual hesitation. I thought you should know that Amanda and Thomas are having serious marital problems. My friend Barbara is neighbors with Thomas's cousin, and apparently Thomas moved out of their apartment last month. The news brought complicated feelings. Concern for Amanda's well-being, mixed with a completely human satisfaction that Thomas's character was finally revealing itself. Do you know what happened? I asked. Linda sighed. From what Barbara heard, Thomas's interest cooled considerably once it became clear Amanda would not be receiving the beach house property. Apparently, he had been telling his family about their future Hamptons estate for months. When that fell through, along with some business investment he was counting on, he started staying out late and running up massive credit card debt. Amanda found messages on his phone from another woman. The revelation that Thomas had seen Amanda primarily as a path to wealth did not surprise me, though I took no pleasure in being right. Has Amanda reached out to you? No. You know how she is about appearing perfect. Barbara said she is telling people they are just taking some space to reevaluate their 5-year plan. After the call, I sat on my deck watching the waves and thinking about Amanda. Despite everything, she was still my daughter. Her pain still mattered to me, even when it resulted from consequences of her own choices. That evening, I wrote her a letter. Not email or text, but an actual handwritten letter on the stationery Sophia had always insisted was the only proper way to express important sentiments. Dear Amanda, I have heard that you are going through a difficult time. While we have profound disagreements about many things, I want you to know that I am still your father, and I still care deeply about your well-being. If you need emotional support, Without financial strings or expectations, I am here. The beach house will always hold a place for you, though not in the way you envisioned. The children who visit here now remind me often of you, at their age, full of potential and resilience, despite difficult beginnings. One boy in particular, Andy, has your same determination and quick mind. When he concentrates on a project, his forehead creases exactly the way yours used to. Your mother always believed that wealth was most meaningful when shared beyond ourselves. The foundation bearing her spirit has brought more purpose to my life than I could have imagined. I hope someday you might visit and see this for yourself. Whatever path your life takes now, I hope you find the genuine happiness that comes from alignment with your truest values, not external markers of success. With love, always. Dad. I mailed it without expectation of response. Simply an offering of connection on new terms. 2 weeks later, a plain white envelope arrived with Amanda's handwriting. Inside was a card with just 3 sentences. The divorce will be final next month. Thomas was never who I pretended he was. Maybe I am not either. It was not an apology or a reconciliation, but it was a tiny crack in the wall between us, an acknowledgement of a reality beyond the materialistic facade she had constructed. It was, perhaps, a beginning. That weekend, Andy and I sat on the deck, watching the sunset after the other children had gone inside. He had been quiet all afternoon, processing the news that a potential adoption had fallen through, another in a long series of disappointments in his young life. Columbus, he said, using my name, as I had invited all the children to do. Do you think some people just do not get to have families? The question pierced my heart with its vulnerable honesty. I think family comes in many forms, Andy. Some we are born into or adopted into. Others we create through connections that matter to us. The important part is not the legal definition, but the genuine care between people. He considered this seriously, his face thoughtful in the fading light. Like how you care about us kids even though we are not really your family? But you are my family, I said simply. Not in the traditional sense, perhaps, but in all the ways that truly matter. Family is where you are accepted exactly as you are, while being gently encouraged to become your best self. Andy nodded, processing this definition. Do you think your daughter will ever be your family again? The real kind of family you just talked about? His perception startled me. I had never discussed Amanda in detail with the children, though they knew the foundation had been established because of my experience as an adoptive parent. I do not know, I answered honestly. Building real family connections requires effort from both sides. I am willing, but I cannot do it alone. Like how I have to trust you will not send me away, but you also have to prove it by actually not sending me away. Andy's insight was breathtaking for a 7-year-old. Exactly like that. Well said. We sat in comfortable silence as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in spectacular oranges and pinks. In that moment of tranquil beauty, I felt a profound sense of peace with the path I had chosen. Life rarely gives us perfect resolution to our deepest wounds. My relationship with Amanda remained uncertain, a work in progress that might or might not find solid footing again. The pain of her rejection and materialistic values had not disappeared entirely. But in choosing to align my actions with my core values, rather than enabling behavior that contradicted them, I had found a freedom and purpose that transcended the hurt. True parental love, I had finally learned, sometimes means allowing natural consequences rather than perpetual rescue. It means maintaining your own integrity even when that creates discomfort. And sometimes, it means opening your heart to new connections when old ones falter. As stars began appearing in the darkening sky, Andy pointed to the first bright pinpoint visible above the ocean. Is that a planet or a star? He asked. That is Venus, I told him. The Romans named it after their goddess of love and beauty. I like that there are so many different kinds of light in the sky, Andy said thoughtfully. Some are planets, some are stars, some are even galaxies. But from here, they all help us see in the dark. His simple wisdom brought unexpected tears to my eyes. Indeed, we find light in many forms throughout our lives. Sometimes, the sources we counted on dim or disappear. But if we remain open to new possibilities, new constellations of meaning can emerge, guiding us forward through even the darkest nights. What unexpected second chances have appeared in your life after disappointment or loss? Have you ever had to choose between enabling someone you love or standing firm in your values? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please hit subscribe and share with someone who might need to hear it. Remember that sometimes our greatest purpose emerges from our deepest wounds, and it is never too late to realign your life with what truly matters. Thank you for listening, and may you find both the courage to set healthy boundaries and the wisdom to recognize the new doors that open when familiar ones close.